Mike Perry versus Nate Diaz. I guess the bigger story is probably just Nate Diaz being a part of this card. Nate Diaz kind of giving this a little more name value to a card that it's interesting, right? Because in terms of, again, if you want to see the best fighters in the world, I wouldn't say this is the card to check out. But this card has given us some of that sizzle, I think, that the UFC has been lacking, right? We're getting that name value. You're getting interesting names on this card. I heard some people say that this is probably going to be the fight on the card so far. Like Rousey and Carano is just going to be, that's completely just name. Francis is a name, but no offense to Philip, he's probably going to get knocked out. He's there to get knocked out. Whereas this fight, even though it's guys still maybe not at the peak of their MMA career, this should be an entertaining fight.
Yeah, I think Mike Perry, I said this in the group chat, I think Mike Perry dog walks Nate Diaz, but I've never been the biggest Nate Diaz fan as like a fighter. I think the sport progressed past him a long time ago, but Mike Perry's, this is boxing or this is an MMA fight? This is MMA, so all these are going to be MMA. The whole card will be MMA.
Okay. Yeah, MMA fight, by the way.
Okay, well, so in just straight MMA, I don't see it going to the ground, but if it does,
right,
Nate has a large advantage. But I don't see it going to the ground. So this is basically going to be a boxing match with 4-ounce gloves on. Assume Mike Perry just kind of dominates. Nate's tough, probably doesn't get knocked out, but I'm sure he's going to be bloodied up like by the end of the first round. In fact, maybe the ref stops it or something, but otherwise we're going to get a decision. I think it's going to be one way, but yeah, I mean, this kind of rounds out this card though. Like, like you mentioned, we kind of have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen in the other two fights, but they are, exciting characters in the sport that we want to see, which, not so much what we're getting in the UFC these days, but to have 3 fights that you're actually looking forward to, it's a pretty good job that MVP and Netflix are putting this together.
And you kind of took the words in my mouth. I wanted to kind of say, would it be an MMA fight that Nate, if it goes to the ground, but also you kind of added too, which is what I was going to say, is that Nate doesn't really go to the ground anyway. I mean, when Nate gets knocked down, he's great off his back. Now, that might happen, which might end up opening some opportunities. So it will be interesting with that. But I kind of, like you, expect, even though Perry hasn't had an MMA fight, I want to say since 2021, 2022, he's been super active with BKFC. And obviously his striking is at an all-time. It's going to be a striking battle probably. And with his power that he's shown, I expect him to probably bloody up. And honestly, I think he'll probably stop and TKO Nate, just given what we've seen out of Perry. I will add one more thing, though. If Perry doesn't get that done, the fact that it is a 5-round fight, Nate Diaz's cardio is legendary. Wouldn't be surprised if Nate comes back late in the fight either. I think
that was a long time ago that Nate Diaz was known for his cardio. You remember that fight against Tony Ferguson, his last UFC fight?
That's true.
That was 3 rounds, right? And he was barely making it through that.
We'll see. This will be out in California, near his home base too. I was going to add one more thing before we move on to the show too. I was thinking about this, other names that could appear on this card. I was looking at potential free agents that we know of that are out there. 2 of them came to mind that I know are free agents. Again, I don't know the status of a Nick Diaz. I don't know the status of a guy like Robbie Lawler. I know Tony Ferguson is probably out there. Actually, I should add him too. But 2 names I thought were interesting were Masvidal and Holly Holm. Masvidal, I would try to maybe get on this card if you want to really add something else to it too, like one more thing, maybe him and Ferguson. I don't know with the weight discrepancy though of what Masvidal's weighing these days and what Tony's weighing, but you could have something fun like that. I wouldn't. Now this is the weird thing for me. I just want to throw this out there. I wouldn't have Holly on the card yet necessarily, even though I think they've done a good job with women's boxing, Jake Paul, and it's kind of their MO and it'd be great. But I have a reason for that. I think even though Ronda has said this is going to be a one-off and it's her last fight, if Ronda wins this, I think there is one more fight you can make, and it would be Holly Holm. I think that's the story. She could never fight Amanda Nunes again. Amanda Nunes went on to be this great, great fighter. But Holm kind of had an up and down kind of career after. And I always wondered, man, if Ronda's like, man, that's the one. If I change my game plan, I'll come back. Putting Holm on this card, though, is say she lost a fight to another, MMA, and she hasn't done MMA, that would probably take some of the steam. So I would leave her off this card in case there's even a remote chance you could do that fight. But what do you think? Is there any chance you think they go for these other fighters? Would you like to see some of these people on the card?
Home, I don't think so because I think that would take away from Gina. Like they would be talking about the possibility of, like you're talking about, what's next. Could you fight Holly? Blah 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 blah. And I think Ronda's very intent on giving Gina an opportunity to be in the spotlight here. So I don't think she would be down for that. And also, she said this was the last one. She's kind of one that I would believe, and she
Sure.
would get upset if people were really pushing her to go for another one. So I don't think that that's going to happen. But Tony Ferguson, I could see. I mean, he's not going anywhere. Even if he should, he's sticking around. But is he like committed to boxing at this point? I mean, MVP seems like they're paying, so
Right.
I think he would just go wherever the money is. So I think that'd be a good him versus anyone to lead off the main. Well, I don't think they're gonna have prelims, but to lead off the card.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I said, if you can get a Masvidal or a Ferguson, for me personally, that's what I think. That would be one more big thing, and I think it would really get this card hopping. We'll see. We'll see. It's coming up May 16th. I don't have it in front of me right now. Was that on?
I'm not sure. 15th or 16th, something around there.
So we're going to talk about it more as it comes up anyway, but on Netflix, free. So actually, I get tired of people saying that, like free now. It's like you're still paying for the subscription or something like that.
It's not free for me. I don't have Netflix because I'm paying like $20 a month. So
if you look at it like that, then UFC's free too. It's not. It's just, we're in a different world.